Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is Chris Akin, and it is time for the Seth Williams Show New Music Moment. And Seth, as you guys are well aware, has been talking on the show about not being able to find new music. Well, I've taken it as my personal quest to introduce him, and thus you, to some new music that is coming out from bands. Some that you know, some that you don't, probably more that you won't. But it's the newer music, the newer rock music that's out there today, because contrary to what is being said here on the show, there's plenty of it coming out. So I will introduce you to a little bit of it, maybe a band or two every single week. And we'll start this week with a band that is a favorite of mine and friends of mine from Albany, New York. The band is called Plush. And here they are. And I'll just tell you, Plush is a band. They're sort of based out of Albany, New York. Two of the members are from that area, and one is from Maine. The guitar player is from Maine, and the drummer is from Arizona, I believe. They've been around really for about 2 years. They formed during the pandemic through social media, and they have had just a whirlwind run their first year. They put out their album simply called Plush in 2021, the end of 2021, and it has been an amazing ride for these girls. They have been out on tour with pick a band, Seven Dust, Wolfgang Van Halen, Daughtry, Alice in Chains, Slash. They played all the big festivals a year ago. They literally have made a huge mark in a short amount of time. You might recognize the singer, the girl here in the middle. That's Mariah Formica. She was on The Voice a few years ago, and it was a travesty that she didn't win because, in my opinion, she has the absolute very best voice in all of rock and metal right now, and that's big praise. But she really is a powerhouse little girl. She's probably 4'11" or so, but man, does she make up for it with her huge voice. Awesome stars. These girls not only is it an all-female group, but they kick ass. And I mean, not just for girls. You've heard that before. For girls, they're great. Absolutely not. For anybody, these girls are great. They're all under the age of 22. So where Seth is worried that there's no bands that are young and up and coming, this is one of them. They're working on their sophomore record right now. They are going to be probably, I'm assuming, out all summer long. I will pretty much promise you I'll get them on the Seth Williams Show at some point to come on and talk about what they're doing. But for now, let's get you guys used to Plush. Here's a little bit of a clip from their video, Will Not Win. This is from their debut release. So this is Plush right here on the Seth Williams Show.
This time you will not win.
Okay, just a little taste of the band Plush. That was Will Not Win. Make sure you check them out. Their website, as you can see on the screen, is plushrocks.net. They're on all the streaming platforms, so if you listen to them and you use the streamings, Go check them out. Their album does kick absolute ass. It's really great. And that'll do it for this edition of the new music moment here on the Seth Williams Show. I know we need a better name, but make sure you keep watching every week. We'll have something for you to let you know that rock is far from dead out there today. So for the Seth Williams Show, I have been Chris Akin, and I will be again tomorrow. See you, folks.
I love it, man. See, I love that segment. Love hearing the new rock.
Nice.
And actually, I thought that those girls were pretty cool. Actually, they're super duper hot. What am I going to say?
I'm telling you, even if there wasn't a video, if that was just the radio, that was a hell of a song. So
yeah, and I love the way the segment is. So I'm very happy with that. That's going to be a new segment we're going to be doing here weekly on the show, and we want to get it sponsored. If you want to sponsor it, SethWilliams32 at yahoo.com. Let me know. Seth and Mike at outlook.com. You can email us and we can work you out with that. But very cool stuff. Enjoying the new music stuff. So we're going to talk more about the music. Angelo Petiti, unfortunately, had something else going on. In fact, it wasn't even that. He was driving, didn't realize that the show was like on video and everything else. So next week we'll be joined by Angelo Petiti, and he's very happy to come on. Very excited about coming on, but didn't make it on tonight for various reasons. So, Chris.
Yes, sir.
How are you, my friend?
Good. How are you?
Thank you for doing that segment. I love that segment.
Good.
so did I.
Hope you found something good. It's amazing how good those girls are at the drummer Faith with the curly hair, like the curly redhead. She graduated high school in June.
Wow. Get out of here.
She graduated high school in June and then was out like 10 days later touring with Alice in Chains.
Jesus, man. Now I kind of feel bad saying they're super duper hot then. But no, everything's okay there. So I'm good.
They're definitely hot. There's no doubt about that. But man, they've been through Cleveland.
They rock too.
They really do rock. And Gunner's right. They do sound like Heart. If you look up Mariah Formica, which is spelled like Formica, Formica. If you look her up, there's a cover that she did of Barracuda by Heart, and they actually play it in every show that they do. It's like they're one of their mainstay songs. But Mariah's amazingly talented. I mean, she's and part of that is me and her are friends, so I'm a little but that band is gonna be something, and that's when you always say there's nothing good out there and there's no good rock that's out there. I'm like, wait a minute, bro, because there's a lot of stuff like that that's going on.
Yeah, I guess, and you're right. I can't wait to hear more of it as the weeks go on with this segment. But the thing that bothers me, I guess, is maybe you don't hear it enough around here, at least.
Well, where would you hear it? That's the problem. MMS is where are you going to hear it? MMS, maybe? In between Nirvana tunes and Van Halen songs? You're not going to hear it on NCX. You're not going to hear it anywhere else on the dial. Where else would you hear it?
I guess, I when I filled in for you the other night on Chris Akin Presents last week or whatever it was, and Eric and I talked about it, and I think I brought it up to Kip Winger too, about the state of rock music and that sort of thing. And they both kind of said that maybe not in Cleveland, but other places in the country, it seems to be a little bit more popular.
Yeah, well, I know, like even in Columbus, they have more radio interaction with bands, and the biggest problem that we have right now is that radio as a whole, it's so spreadsheet centric that they don't want to take chances on a new band like a Plush, as an example. It's much easier to throw Papa Roach into Korn into 3 Days Grace and all proven entity bands if you're going to do active rock and not take any risk that people won't like it. You just go with the safe, and that's that's as anti-rock and roll as it could possibly be.
I was going to say, man, that's the antithesis of rock and roll, is being afraid to take risks when that's all it was. We gotta hope. We have to hope that this generation or something happens to where the pendulum starts to swing the other way, and people take some of the tech out of their ear and set their phone down and discover again what a live band kicking ass in a place like the Troubadour or the Agora feels like, and that will be just as much fun, and then it all starts all over again.
It does. But I think though, Mike, I think you got to kind of, I don't want to say you got to go back to the old school though, because it can be done with the new school as well. Like this band that I just brought you guys today, Plush, they're formed 100% on social media. They weren't playing in a garage band together or anything. It was Mariah finished on The Voice, so she was basically a game show contestant on The Voice, and then she, from being on The Voice to put a flyer on Instagram. Lizzie Hale from Hailstorm saw it and shared it, and that's how they ended up with Ashley, who's the bass player, the blonde girl, and Bella, who's the girl with the long straight hair. She's from Maine. She just happened to see the advertisement through Instagram. They're not an organic band. That's not, they're very new school in how they came together. But boy, it's just the weirdest, it's like any other band. I mean, how many people knew at the time that weird mishmash of Metallica would be Metallica, or Guns N' Roses, or the Rolling Stones, and it's just when you get the talent together, it either meshes or it doesn't. But there's a lot of it out there. I'm definitely excited to kind of do one of these for you guys every single week and turn you on to some new bands, and maybe even some bands that you've heard of. I'll probably next week slide in Wolfgang Van Halen.
Nice.
While you guys know the Van Halen name, I'm pretty confident that probably 75% of your audience does not realize what that kid's doing.
Oh man, he's brilliant, man. Yeah. With a dad like that, how can he not be? Kind of.
He is, but he has his own identity, and that's the unique thing. His music has its own identity that's very different from Van Halen. So, we'll probably cover that. And believe me, I have a laundry list of. I have 100 bands I can bring, so we could do this segment for quite a while.
Yeah. Now, I watched part of the. I hate to admit it, but part of the iHeart Awards the other night, music awards, and they're giving awards out to bands like Coldplay, and
my God!
I mean, Coldplay has a hell of a following, and I guess I understand it a little bit, but that's not rock music, in my opinion, anyways. But you see bands like that going, I mean, they're worldwide, and it seems like rock seems to have a bigger effect outside of the U.S.
Oh, it does, 100%. Because here in the U.S., we're all trend jumpers. In the U.S., the U.S. audience will look at whatever the TV is feeding them or the radio is feeding them, and that's what they listen to. That's why
jump on. Yep. Plus, there's a lot of organic stuff happening in places like France and Turkey and Germany that give rise to a nice blend of the old and the new, with regard to live entertainment, clubbing, social protest, the lyrics meaning something. God knows the world could use it.
Well, and it again, it's just not happening here. If you look up, and I'll challenge your listeners. I'll give them exact searches on YouTube of big, huge things. If they look up the band Pantera, which everybody that's a metalhead knows, look up Pantera Chile 2022. They just were there in I think November, and you'll see 100,000 Chileans just going crazy in one spot at one time, just packing 100,000 people. Or if you look at the Wacken Festival in Germany in 2022 or 19, because the pandemic killed it for a couple of years, that festival has a couple 100,000 people that show up for 4 days to watch 100 bands that are making metal music. So there is an audience for it. It's just here we go for the cheap. We're looking more for somebody that's like Xtentation, some rapper like that, or Tekashi 6ix9ine that's hot on TikTok instead of actually making organically good, solid music. And that's why one of the things I always joke with people about is we all know how, like, here in Cleveland we've got WNCX, right? The
Right.
rock station. They're going to run out of stuff to add, because what is there to add from the last 20 years?
Good point.
And that's a long, I mean, if it was 3 years or 5 years, that's okay. That happens from time to time. You have lulls in music. But we name the last big band that came out after 2000 that's huge. And
I mean, you're going to struggle. I mean, the Godsmacks and stuff like that. But I mean, those guys are still. I mean, they're playing overseas, but they're not as big as they used to be in the 2000s.
Yeah, I thought Greta Van Fleet was going to start something, but that didn't get as big as I thought it might.
Well, you know what, Mike, and this is only my assumption, but you can tell me if you think I'm right or wrong. I don't think a band like Greta Van Fleet is ever going to be the answer, because they almost get the double whammy. They sound like an old band, so new kids don't do it. And the old people would just rather listen to their Led Zeppelin records than actually adopt a band that borrows from Led Zeppelin. So they don't get that audience either.
Got a point there. If I can change the subject for a second. I've talked to Seth a little bit about this, Chris. You and I haven't talked for a while. So let me first start by saying it's good to have you back and healthy and creative, and that segment you put together for our show was, I'm looking forward to the next one.
Cool.
But I've been following by email and getting updates on a documentary that's due to come out sometime next week. And the title of the documentary is What the Hell Happened to Blood, Sweat, and Tears?
Okay.
And I'm curious about it because that concert in August of 1969, when 80,000 people showed up at Blossom, who was prepared to deal with about 25,000,
right,
is still etched in memory. And the poor guy that had to open and got the message, can you please stretch until the band gets here? I walked up to the stage, the microphone, after what he thought was his set and said, well, I've been told I got to play some more. My name is John Denver, and here's a song that I haven't even recorded yet. I'm writing and working on it. And then he played Leaving on a Jet Plane. But for people that don't know, Blood, Sweat, and Tears was the first American band to play behind the Iron Curtain back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I told Seth, and I'm certainly inviting you, it's going to be in Columbus for a week, and it's going to be at the Cedar Lee for one night only. If we can coordinate our schedules, it might be a hell of a lot of fun to go see that documentary.
Yeah, I'd be interested in that.
And talk about what that was all about, because, that was back in the day. We're celebrating rock and roll and all of its machinations, and, hard metal and heavy metal and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And people forget that the government and politicians and the news every night said, oh my God, the society's changing and the kids are going to be corrupted. And what it was like when rock and roll first hit the world. And I don't know, it might give us a lot of perspective and a lot to talk about.
Sure. I would definitely be interested. I love Blood, Sweat, and Tears. It's such a funny thing, because I'm considered, most people, when they see Chris Akin Presents or they see Classic Metal Show or whatever, they just think that I'm like a hardcore, metal fan, which I am. I make no bones about it. There's no heavy metal that's heavy enough for me. I'm just fine with the Cannibal Corpses and the heaviest of the stuff.
Yeah.
But at the same time, my favorite station that I listen to is a yacht rock station, listening to Air Supply and,
I couldn't believe that when you posted it, but yeah, it's kind of interesting. So, I mean, I'm glad I'm 67 for a lot of reasons. I mean, like I said, I was at that Blood, Sweat, and Tears concert at Blossom, but I was also at the one where Crosby, Stills, and Nash said, we've never played this song in front of people, and launched into Ohio. I mean, there are just moments where the music has been cool.
Sure. There's tons of them, and there's
And
so
there's a
many,
lot coming too.
and there's so many great documentaries out there. If you're a music fan, and I mean, if you're a music fan, you can go to YouTube and just search any band, and you'll find 10 documentaries on any.
Yeah, yeah.
But and in a weird way, though, and I'm going to go back to Glass Half Empty for a minute. We always do that. We always go backwards.
Yeah.
And we don't grab these new bands, we're anymore. I mean, there's so many bands that are out there that are just killing. And they're like, there's another band that I will bring at some point to the show called Dirty Honey, which some people might have probably heard. They've had one or two songs on the radio that have been successful, but they're great. They're as phenomenal as a band could be. They should absolutely be what Guns N' Roses was in 1988, or the Black Crowes in 1990, or they should be that type of a band. And they're not, even though they're touring with those bands and playing in front of 20,000 people. And it's because the old people that go to the shows will not, they just refuse to accept new music. And I can't imagine how frustrating it is to be an artist today where you're, even these bands that we're talking about, like Blood, Sweat, and Tears, they knew that the parents of their kids would at least hear the music.
Yeah.
And
right.
It's a different animal now.
I was at the Troubadour to see the first time Van Halen played the Troubadour. Wow. And the following week, they were scheduled to play their own high school prom.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, they were 17, 18 years old then, too. So,
sure. What was that, like 77, 76, something like that?
Yep. 76.
Yeah. Sad part is, though, Chris, is that a lot of the new bands don't even get a chance to do these tours because the old guys are still touring. I mean, Air Supply is coming to town, I think, this year, in a few months.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, they look a lot different now. Did you see these guys now? They're like tatted up and they're like 80 and they got nail polish on and ready to go. But I'm going to that show. I'm telling you right now, I'm going to see Air Supply because you're right. We kind of go back to everything that we liked, and a lot of the new stuff isn't accepted.
In fairness, when I was at the Comedy Store, Mitzi Shore on Sunday nights used to have the big band cover bands. And all of the bands had one guy from the original band, and everybody else in the band was like 17, 18, 20 years old. So I saw Buddy Rich and I saw all the classic big band shows. And I listened to the music of the era. But it's like Peter Noonan still tours, and everybody else that backs him up is like 20. So that's always going to happen. The key is to be a good enough band that 40, 50, 60 years later, people still want to hear your music.
Yeah. Well, but it's, I think the economics are a big problem these days too. I mean, it's so expensive to tour, and everything has become so commercialized. I won't mention names of specific bands, but I've talked to many that have gone out on the road to play tours. Like I have two different friends that have bands that toured with Tesla, and they bought onto the tours and they went broke because they pay an astronomical amount of money. They pay like $40,000-$50,000 to go and play 10 shows with a band like Tesla. And then they get to the venue, they've got t-shirts and CDs to sell, but the venue now takes a percentage of their merch money, as well as not paying them, as well as them paying to be on the tour.
Yeah.
So they come back broke, and then they're disheartened, and then we as fans lose a potential band that could have been the next great band.
Agreed.
And Gunnar was talking about it, and you see it a lot now. Country music has taken a lot of the rock stuff away. I mean, you get a guy like Kid Rock going out there and doing more country than he's doing rock anymore. Maybe not with his latest album, but a lot of country is now more rockish than it was the twang that it used to be. And so it seems like because it's a more popular genre, maybe, that country takes over some of that rock stuff.
Well, here's the deal with that. The reason it works, and you, if you want to look for the blame on that, blame Shania Twain and Garth Brooks, because they're the ones that stopped doing twangy and actually did huge shows. And I've seen them both, and I can tell you, the Garth Brooks show is as big as any Metallica or U2 or anything you will ever see. It is a massive, massive
production.
Yeah, and Shania is too. But it changed the way that country was perceived. If you go back to Shania's album, her breakthrough album, which is called Come On Over, she released it in both a country format and a rock format, where they just changed the music and put her vocals over rock tracks. And you can buy that even still. You can buy the rock version of her record. It changed the game. And if you look at what they're doing now, the country artists, look at who the big country artists are, like a Carrie Underwood. Is she really a country artist?
Man,
I don't
more
Yeah,
pop,
right.
more pop than anything.
Oh, and who's popping up and playing with her at shows? Axl Rose.
Axl Rose.
Axl, right.
So I mean, it's not there's a tear in my beer anymore. You know, it's definitely more of a rocked up thing. And I mean, they have the country twang in the guitar, but it's really reminiscent more of rock music, just with a slide guitar, than it is of country music that we grew up with.
Gunnar brought up Chris Gaines. Remember that?
The Legend of Queens. Yeah, I remember that.
Hey, who would have thunk that Northfield Park, MGM Grant, would have ended up as interesting a music venue for Northeast Ohio? Because like you lament the big shows and the stuff that doesn't come through, and we've talked the politics of touring and so on and so forth. But man, there is always somebody worth seeing out there at that casino.
It's a great venue.
That's my favorite venue in town. You know, no offense to the other guys. I mean, there's a lot of people doing good stuff in the various venues, but as far as the seating is good, you can see from everywhere. The sound is pretty darn decent. It doesn't echo all over the place like like House of Blues or whatever. You know, I mean, it really, really is a comfortable venue. I've seen, admittedly, it's 10 minutes from my house, so that's also a benefit.
Yeah,
but
it's worth the drive.
But it's definitely the easiest venue to get in and out of in Cleveland or in the Cleveland area.
Yeah,
and you know, and it's big enough. It's I think it holds like 2,500 people. I think so. It's big enough that you can get. I mean, I've seen artists as big as like Sammy Hagar there.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's a good size. It's the right size. It's a great venue. And the guys, hats off to the people at MGM. And I forget who owned it beforehand, but
Hard Rock, wasn't it?
Who was it?
Wasn't it Hard Rock?
Hard Rock, I think.
Hard Rock. That's right. Yeah. But yeah, it's a great venue.
I just saw Tesla there last year, and it was awesome. It was a great show. Do you think streaming has a lot to do with the way that music is going these days? Because now all you need is a song. All you need to download it. You don't need to buy a CD anymore. You don't need to hear the other tracks on everything. So music kind of sucks because it's a one-hit kind of thing.
Well, yeah, no. I mean, streaming, you'll get the argument from every band. I have put this question to every band up to Grammy winners. I ask them all the time. They bitch and moan all the time about that they can't make any money. And I'm like, okay, then why do you put your music on Spotify? Why do you record your whole album and put the whole thing up for free? And the answer I get every time is, it's what everybody else is doing. And that's such a crappy answer.
It sure as hell is.
You know, it's like, and I had this debate with David Ellison from Megadeth one night on my show, and he said that to me, and I said, well, why wouldn't you just put up 4 songs so that people can hear a little bit of what you're doing?
Yep.
But if they like what you're doing, then sell the other 6 songs for $5 or something on your website, because then at least you get something.
Yeah.
You know, but he was just like, nah, they'll just listen to the 4 songs and they won't buy it. It's like, well, then why make it? you know, if I get it that it's a passion thing, but it's also a business, and it should be.
All right.
I think the biggest problem with streaming, though, is that when it's a problem I have in all walks of life. Free is garbage. Free is always garbage.
Amen.
You know, if
the audience sits there and pays the respect based on what they think. And if you give an audience a free show, they think it ain't worth anything because it didn't cost anything. If you charge them $5 for the show, they have more respect for the show. It works in comedy that way. It works in music that way. I think it works in general that way. If it's free, people think it's cheap.
Exactly. I mean, we're 3 old guys sitting here talking. Each one of us has a favorite album that we bought, and whatever that album is for you guys, I know what it is for me. I remember getting it. I remember opening it. I remember reading every credit in the stupid thing. I remember memorizing the lyric sheet. And
Chris, I gotta tell you this. My dad had 4 pizza shops.
Right.
And every booth in the pizza shop had one of those record players where you just like flip the things and put the quarter in and play the music. And they were all on 45s in the jukebox. Every 2 weeks, the guy came around and changed the music. He put 8 new songs on and he took 8 off. And guess what? They gave away the 45s.
Right.
I had a 45 collection that I probably could have retired on if I didn't go on tour one time and have my, addicted roommate sell all my records. That's neither here nor. But my point is that was, those were my favorite records. Is I had the original 45s of Jumpin' Jack Flash, the Beatles, you name it. I had it in a 45.
See, you got to remember though, Chris, I'm a tad bit younger than Mike. Actually, a lot bit younger than Mike. So I was more the cassette guy.
Yeah, that's cool.
Up. So I had like Guns N' Roses, Lies, stuff like that, Skid Row on there. And I walk around like I told you the other day with one of those yellow Sony Walkmans, like I was something cool with the little headphones on. But yeah, I mean, but Pink Floyd obviously was my favorite band growing up. Like,
mine too.
Hey, so whether it's The Wall, Dark Side, whatever, all of them are fantastic. And I think now there's that new appreciation for albums once again. My daughter all of a sudden wants albums and has like all these Elvis albums laying all over the place. And I mean, I guess it's cool that they're getting back into it a little bit, but the music needs to catch up. Do you think grunge had anything to do with getting rid of a lot of the good rock music back in the day?
I don't know. I see. Grunge was a big seller. If you think about it, people were still buying. I mean, Nirvana's Nevermind. What that sell? 20 million records or something?
Yeah. I mean, huge.
Yeah, I mean, it was huge. Soundgarden was huge. Stone Temple Pilots. There's a long list of those bands. I just think the biggest thing that really hurt the industry was the industry itself. It just at the beginning, rock radio switched from being rebellious radio to being safe.
Corporate radio. Amen.
Yeah. I mean,
now, why we have the 3 of us here, as this show has a tendency to do when it comes up with an idea that might benefit things and make things better, why don't we enlist or at least make inroads at the Rock Hall and get them to use that 10,000 seat wonderful venue right across the street called Public Hall and do something about bringing new music, up and coming music, rock and roll music, live music back to the city of Cleveland and put this city of Cleveland back on the map.
Screw that. What they need to do as far as the Rock Hall goes is They
Push
need to build their own venue there. I mean, they could have a beautiful area to build their own venue right there on the lake, and they could do whatever they want to do with it. Whether it's an amphitheater, but that would be closed for a while because of the weather. But you could put their own venue there, put a club there, put whatever it is. I mean, the Rock Hall is missing the boat, I think, when it comes to
I
the
think
music
so
in this
too.
town.
But
Well,
I think we should.
The Rock Hall misses every boat on everything. If you ask me, they are definitely, they've done everything wrong as far as I'm concerned. From not having the induction here every single year, which is absolute insult.
Yeah.
To having the weird artsy shaped building that represents nothing of rock and roll, to all the way down to other than the ZZ Top car, I don't have a whole lot of love for the Rock Hall. I really am disgusted with what they've done because it's just been a poor representation. It's
what I'm saying is between the CMS network and between this show, let's put together a white paper on shoulda, woulda, coulda, and dump it on their doorstep and dump it on City Hall's doorstep and see what we can do to wake this city up. If we sit around and wait for Cleveland to get it, it will be a cold day in hell.
Well, the problem is that to get that piece of paper, you got to go to New York anyway, because that's the problem. They're not here. They don't have any community love because they're not part of the community.
Yeah.
And that's a problem.
I agree.
The fact that you guys had Joe Cleon on your show, one of the preeminent photographers of rock music in this town for 20 years plus, has taken some of the most iconic pictures that you have seen, pictures that if I held you up a cover of Scene magazine, you'd be like, I remember that one. I remember that one. Those are all Joe Cleon, and he can't get so much as a picture in a frame in a building in his town.
That's all wrong. We started that when he was on the air, that we were going to follow up and demand that the Rock Hall look at putting together a room for all the Cleveland photographers. Because not only was rock and roll named in this city, it was also photographed in this city.
Yeah.
There should be something about that in the Rock Hall too. So,
but in the grandest celebration of rock and roll, it's not part of this city. Those people don't live here.
Yeah,
and that's the biggest problem we have. I mean, the only way you're going to make the Rock Hall make sense is to put Cleveland people in it. And, who? Jan Wenner isn't giving up his job
right
in New York City. He's going to keep.
You're right.
I mean, and what could you possibly say to convince people that making it easier for the artists by doing it in LA or New York every year is better or is worse than doing it in Cleveland? That's the problem.
Yeah.
It's money. It's only about money. If there was something that came out of doing a performance in Cleveland at the Rock Hall, if they could come in, you would really have to incentivize it somehow. You'd have to make it like a DVD, or not DVD, but a streaming broadcast. We're going to have Pat Benatar's induction concert on this stream that she could sell beyond it or something.
True.
Then
but like I said, let's put a little thought into it and come up with a way to make it happen.
Yeah, well, I don't know that you can beat that door down, Mike.
Let's look at it this way. Martin Luther couldn't knock the door down, but he nailed a thesis to the front of it that caused a little bit of a stir.
Yeah, but there's been 600 years since then, Mike.
Yeah.
Thank you. Tom says when the Rock Hall opened, they really focused on local and regional bands, having them play in the plaza in the summer.
Right.
And at the inside space, our band did one of the opening events. But but they've gone away from that. And to Chris's point, kind of forget about even getting through the Rock Hall, which would be near impossible to get people from New York and politics involved in that. The city of Cleveland screws every damn thing up that they can possibly screw up.
Yeah.
Whether it's Tower City, whether it's busing, whether it's the lakefront, whatever it is, the city of Cleveland screws it all up. Whether it's police, they screw it up. So you're not going to forget about the Rock Hall. You're not going to get the city of Cleveland to change anything.
Well, how about we put together like another World Series of Rock and put it on pay-per-view and approach HBO or the Russo brothers that are filmmakers in this city and make it a documentary and a series. I mean, I'm not willing to just wash my hands and say it's beyond hope.
I don't think
Especially if we put together a World Series of Rock for all of the bands like Plush that Chris knows, and we could promote it and introduce the world to a whole bunch of rock and roll bands that deserve the attention.
All I know, Mike, is that what you would have to untangle politically is on par with trying to balance the budget. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, just if you take all the little pieces that we've talked about over the last 4 or 5 months on the show, the whole thing about limiting bands where they can play if they play certain festivals in Ohio. If you take apart the tax money that the city of Cleveland would have to go ahead and say, okay, Rock Hall, we don't want that anymore because we want the show in Cleveland instead of the money. You got to convince, the Cleveland government to take less tax revenue. Then you got to convince the people at the Rock Hall that it's a more money-making venture. Then you got to convince every artist in the country and in the world that they want to come to the middle of the country to play this thing.
Wow. And then you got to get through people like Live Nation. You got to get through all the other things that go involved with getting even a concert to put on. Forget about Rock Hall.
If Bruce Springsteen, we'll use Springsteen as an example. If Bruce Springsteen was approached, now Bruce Springsteen has to make a decision. Do I play a non-Live Nation venue like the Rock Hall or not? And do you think Bruce Springsteen, who charges $2.5 million a night, is going to turn down or is going to potentially piss off $100 million a year for touring so he can go stand in a triangle building?
So you think that Cleve stock is not like really going to happen anytime soon?
No.
3 days of love, peace, and music here in Cleveland, Ohio.
It happens every year in Columbus. They call it Sonic Temple.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they do. We'd have trouble playing it on this show, a video of something, because we'd be banned. Forget about putting a concert on.
So true.
With 18 people, we wouldn't be able to play the video.
Right.
Too funny.
But I don't know, man. I would love to see music take a turn for the better. And I think that's, circling back, if you will, to like over a half hour ago when we played the segment. That's what I want to see with this segment, is showing people what the new music is and, what's kind of out there, and showcasing some talent on this show, which I think is cool. So
yeah. That's what we're going to do. I'm going to bring you guys bands, mostly bands that you probably have not heard of, or you might have seen the name, but you never got past just seeing the name float around. Because there's tons of them that are out there, and it's just, it's almost kind of going backwards to the underground. Just the underground is a little more digital, but it really is the underground where you just got to kind of, you find it, you tell 2 people, and they tell 2 people, and slowly but surely, that's how you get discovered.
Yeah, I was watching a couple of videos on TikTok the other day. I called you about that band Elaine or whatever it was.
Yeah,
and it may be too heavy for this crowd, but
I sent you some stuff, Chris, about Critic City too.
Yeah, I know. I'm getting all kinds of entertainment from you too.
See how we roll? We don't save it for the show. We just give it to you.
There you go.
The funny part was this band Elaine that Seth is talking about. He's like, "Hey, have you ever heard of this?" And I threw him a link right back of, well, here I am interviewing them.
Yeah. I was like, dude, you ever heard of this great new band? I love this new song that they got. You ever heard of this, guys? And 2 seconds later, I'm watching a 30-minute interview with Chris and this band. And I'll tell you what, if you get a chance to check out the band Elaine, Eleine, I believe.
Or Elaine. It's like, because it's like half of Madeline.
All right. Well, and she is way hot. It's a pretty heavy band, but she's got a great voice, and check out that band. It's definitely interesting stuff.
Yeah, I like that band a lot.
I think YouTube has helped the trend downward. Gave us Justin Bieber and that girl saying Friday, Friday. All these social media things don't help.
No,
but
Listen,
it doesn't hurt either. I mean, I don't know.
I will tell you, man. I remember in the 60s and 70s, people going, "Oh my God, they're going to put a chip in our neck," and they don't have to anymore because everybody's got a cell phone. It's just.
Yeah. Well, Chris, I appreciate you coming on, spending all this time with us.
no problem, man.
Looking forward to it.
Angelo Petiti couldn't come on tonight, and he's going to hopefully join us next week.
Well,
But thanks for coming on, talking some music, and thank you for the new segment.
hey, no problem, guys.